In this video, I'm going to share 3 simple tips to improve your UI design in Figma. Welcome to the Ready Designer 1 channel. We're going to go through this example and apply it to a real piece of user interface or UI, which is a project I'm doing currently called Spaced, and this is a space boarding pass. And how can we improve this design or the UI? We're going to look at a grid layout. So this is very easy to set up. You just have to click on the frame and Command dot to go back. So here I'm actually going to create one, and what you want to do is say 2 columns, and we just put 2. Now this is the thing about the next tip, which is a spacing scale. So here I say to increment by 2, 4 or 8 pixels. So here's an example of a scale: 8, 16, 20, 24 and so on. So now you have an idea of what you want to use. So I'm going to say the margin is going to be 20. So this is on either side, and then the gutter is also going to be 20. Very simple. Gives you an idea of how to lay out things, and you can see I've just randomly placed these. So we can use this grid just to very quickly select all of these and just align it up. So I haven't selected them properly. Let me try and do that. Hold shift and then just slightly align it. You can see it's a bit of work because you have to drag it, and you can see these are not lining up correctly. So once we have this system of 2, 4 or 8 pixels, you might be familiar with the 4-point grid system or the 8-point grid system, where you increment by 8 or 4. To give you a bit more variety, there's the 2-point or pixel grid system. We've just laid it out in 2 columns, nothing special, but at least now we are starting to make sure that we have to line things up. You can manually do this where you align it to the edge, so things are lining up 20 pixels exactly. So things are already, but this, as you can tell, it does take time to lay things out. So we are going to do that at the end of the video, where we're going to use auto layout. I'm using space mono, and it's regular 16 pixels. That's like the default web size, and the line height is auto at the moment. So again, you can increment it by 2, 4, 8. So I've just put in an example, and you're probably familiar with this scale where you got 14, 16, 24, and I go right up to 72 because I like to use really big font size for the main heading or something that I want to stand out. So in this case, we have to think, what are the elements here that are important? So we have to think about the visual hierarchy. What do we want the user to see first? What do we feel is important? So I've already kind of positioned this at the top. So here is the destination, from and to. So straight away I'm going to go 72. So that is nice and big, and that's already very different from the rest. Now the line height, generally when you have a big heading, you want to have the line height to be around the same, or for CSS it's a line height of 1 or 1.2 or 1.5, but here we're having it solid. You can even go less than that, but we're keeping it simple. The next thing is the name of the passenger. So again, we can play around with our scale. I'm going to say 24. Shall we say 32? Again, we have to think about long names, so I'm just going to say 24 for now. I think that is pretty good. And even so, we can go bold. Okay, so we can go a bit different with certain treatments. I think the name is important. Now the next thing is the labels and the text. If you were to think for the passenger, what is the most important out of the 2? You probably feel that these details of the text is more important. So why don't we make these bigger? So here again, we can just go to each of these. So I'm just selecting these one by one, and it does take time, and I'm going to say let's go to 24. What I need to do, I should have duplicated this, shouldn't I? So you would have a very plain template to begin with. So I'm just going to quickly go back into the future, if that makes sense. Let me just Command Z all the way, because I want to duplicate this so you can see how it all started from nothing. Okay, So let me just duplicate that and let's start again. So auto layout to then make this a bit more easy to lay out and be more consistent. So I'm just going to Command E that. So this one here, I can straight away do Shift A and that will turn it into an auto layout. Now I want this to have the same width as everything else, which is this frame here. So let's have a think. So here I can say I want it to be fixed and we just go 414. Okay, I want it to be aligned from the left and the top. So now you can be very precise with spacing, and here I'm going to say on the left and the right is 20. So now it's going to line up nicely. So if I click in, you can see it's lining up, and from the top I'm going to say 40, top and bottom. So you've got some nice space on there. Now the next thing to do here, same thing again, just do Shift A, and here I'm going to do the same thing where the width is fixed of 414. We want that to align from the left, and same thing again on the left and the right. I want it to be 20. Okay, so now it's lining up very nicely. Same thing again for these. We're going to do it a bit different. We're actually going to combine these. So I'm going to select and I'll do Shift A, and that has brought it into an auto layout. I'm just going to call this column, or col for short, just to save time. These two I'm going to do the same, Shift and A, and then column or col. And here the same thing again, we can play with the spacing, right? So I could say 4, or I'll just keep it 0 for now. But here you can reference your space scale, even though we haven't set a 4 on there. But it increments by 2 or 4 or 8, and that is very, very simple there. So again, I'm going to do okay, so we have 2. Now what we want to do is to put this into an auto layout. So this is where it gets interesting. So I'm going to select both by holding Shift and do Shift A. So this we can call row, and I'm going to give this a fixed width of 414 from the left. Now the spacing between the elements, which is this, we're going to say 20 as well, and the spacing on the left and the right is also 20. However, what we want to do is we want to hit enter, so that will select 2 of the columns, and we want them to fill container. So now you can see it's starting to line up very nicely. So all I'm going to do, I'm just going to take these out, because it's going to take time to start repeating the same thing for all of these. So I'm just going to, one last thing to try is hit enter, hit enter. Oh, will it let me go in again? Hit enter, no. So if I go back, enter, enter, okay. I actually want those to fill container as well. So I'm going to go back into the text and fill, and go into the text and fill. Okay, great. And the reason why you do that is because you want it to be fluid, even though that's not fluid, which we'll show at the end. And so here what we're going to do is we're going to start combining stuff. Okay, so we can call this header. This one, that one is really a header as well. Or we could say banner. Okay, right at the end we have the barcode, so I'm just going to put that there. So what I'm going to do now is actually combine all of them, and if I go Shift A again, now I'm going to say fixed width of 414, and I'm actually going to hit enter again, and I want this to fill container. Okay, so this is interesting now. So if I then do this, you can see it's not 100% fluid yet. So here, if I hit enter and enter again and enter again and again, okay, no, that's fine. Okay, so now you can imagine that this is, you could call this a container. And now all I'm going to do really is think about my spacing as well. So I could say I want it to be 20 between each of these items. Now I'm just going to command this another 1, 2, 3, 4. So 4 times. 1, 2, 3, 4. Nice. So you can see everything is just nicely spaced out. And to speed this up, I'm just going to speed up the video here because I'm just going to put in these different. So the nice thing now is we've just created a very simple layout, and we're controlling the spacing now very nicely. And I could say I want this to be a bit more spacing. I could say 40. Now that might be a bit much, so we could stick to 20. We could say 32. I think 32 is quite generous. I always say be generous with spacing, so I'm saying 32. And then this one at the end, do we want to put this within an auto layout? We don't have to. So here we could say go to the bottom. We want this to be in the center, but we want it to be 20 pixels from the bottom. So can we do it this way? Minus 20. There we go. The next challenge is we have our very simple, if I command D, you can see that that's not fluid. So let's find out why that is not fluid. I just want to go into these, and that is filling. If I say hug, let's see what happens. Okay. Okay, so let's, so for some reason when I click on the row, it's saying fixed, but we want it to fill. Okay, so we want all of these to fill container. Not sure why it didn't fill. We want that to fill, and we want that to fill. So now it is not fluid. And I wonder why. So that's fill. If I go in, that's filling. If I go in again, that is filling. Interesting. Okay, so we're not going to worry about being responsive right now. This is where we get too deep into auto layout. Now, if you really want to improve your UI or visual design, how can we make this different? So it's already very simple, minimal and clean. This is something that I like. Now, if you want to go a step further, we can start using visuals. So for example, I'm already thinking of using a background on here and also changing this font. So for now, let's just say we decided to collapse everything and we went into all of these. I'm also going to combine these. So Shift A, we can just call that wrap. And I think we just want to bring this down here. The reason why is because I'm going to say we want this to be black. We want the wrap to have a background of white. Cool. And not sure what happened to this one. see if I can bring it in, and then we bring it right to the end. Here I'm going to say I just brought that in and it's not letting me. Well, this is one way of putting stuff in the middle. Okay, so I've just put this inside the wrap. Okay, so let's just have a think about this. So here I'm also just going to remove the spacing there. We'll bring it back. And this one, I actually just want that. Now I'm using a tailwind style there. Just going to take that out. We're just going to go white. Okay, so that's very simple and clean. You could probably be a bit more generous with the spacing there. So I'm going to go into the wrap and I'm going to say spacing at top and bottom of 20. You can see now that's starting to take out quite a bit. So let's just have a think. So if I go to container, get rid of that. Okay, that's better. This one I'm just going to bring it. I'm going to bring the wrap all the way down here. Okay, so now we're just making the header come out a bit more. And if I just get rid of this, so you can see it's very simple, but things are nicely lined up, they're consistent. And then just to bring it a step further, just like in the iOS, in the apps, they made this into a card style. So I'm just going to say 32 and 32, or you could even, 32, 32. So you can see you got that nice card style. We can even change these to a lighter grey as well. So I'm going to Command E again. And the thing is, it will take time to select all of these. So I'm just going to picking out, let's just go 6666 or 8888. B. We want that to be 100%. Okay, so I think that is pretty good. So now we're really starting to highlight what is important. So we just put a lighter grey on the labels. So again, we're helping this text stand out. So not everything is the same color. Just very simple changes. Now, what can we further do to this? So the next thing is we can start adding images. So I provided that here. So I'm just going to copy, go back, and I'm going to just paste these into the banner. So if I do it like this, let's see if that works. Probably not. So let's have a think. This is where we can use, well, we can go to banner and we can find the background, but I'm going to try and play around with a new position absolute. So I'm going to paste that. I'm going to say we want that to be absolute. We want that to be behind. And now I'm going to say 414 from the left and the top. Nice. So now we're using the new position absolute, which I think is absolutely cool. So that's one nice image. So let's try it again, a different image. So now we're going to try a different image just to see how it looks. And again, I'm just going to delete that, paste that in. We need to absolute it, 414. Just align that. You could probably get away with using, I mean, yeah, that is very nice and simple. Can we align it like that? So we've got more color. Again, we can play around. Okay. So that looks pretty nice as well. Last one to try is this one. So here I'm going to delete, paste, and we want that to be absolute 414 left and top. So I need to probably just shift and up. So now I'm just, you can see that really nice. So I'm going to say around in the middle, right? Now, is this readable? So there's little things we can do, which is pretty cool in that we can use blend modes. So I'm going to say difference. I mean, that is pretty nice already. It's very different, right? This brand of space is new, it's futuristic. So we can go bold as well. And now the final tip that I would recommend to truly make it different to the competition is to use a different font. So I'm actually going to I'm going to start from here, Command D, bring that down, and I'm going to see how different it is when we change the font. So the font that I found that is a premium font is called BT Super, and this is a really retro futuristic font. It's very similar to the NASA worm logo, and this is where it truly becomes different. The only thing about this is it would be nice if it was together. So I'm just going to delete that. And is that obvious enough? Probably not. So now this is starting to be a lot more unique to the brand. So again here I'm just going to do BT Super. Let's see how this looks. Now that is looking very nice. So you can see where we started, and then we ended up bringing in visuals, and we started playing around with the font, how to make it different, how to make it legible as well. That's one thing. So now we played around with blend modes. What I've noticed is the line height could be a lot more tighter, okay, because this is quite a big heading and they're all in caps, so there's no danger of these clashing. So again, I'm just going to Command E everything. This is good to see the progression. And here I'm going to go in, and when you go to the line height, you hold shift and go down, and that will decrease it. So I'm decreasing it by 8 every time. So that is really tight. I think that is enough. So again here, I'm going to just do that. So that's probably going to bring this up, which I think is okay for now. In order to do your nudge amount, you have to go to Figma. So this is off the screen, but go to Figma on the top left, look for preferences, and then you'll see nudge amount. So here I've currently got 8. So I think the default is something else. So you can change the nudge amount to 8 or 4 or whatever value you like. Since we went through doing auto layout, you can see here that it's not fluid. So I'm not sure if there's been some updates, but let's figure this out together. So what I mean by that is, here I've done a version where it is nice and fluid. And this is actually on a auto layout frame, because before, if I remember correctly, we couldn't do a layout grid on a auto layout, but I might be wrong. So how do we do this? This is actually nice because you don't actually need a frame. So if I was to just Command D, and in here I'm actually just going to take the container out, okay, and delete that. So now you've got this really simple container, and now because the image is out, I just need to clip content. So now we just got this really simple container which is all auto layout. However, you can see it is getting fluid, but it is still not fluid. So there's certain things we have to do. So if we go into this wrap, we hit enter to go into all of the other frames, and then we do fill container. Okay, so now we do that and it is nice and fluid. This one, again, I'm not sure the barcode will be affected, but since we added it to the auto layout, we can do something similar where we do, so here it's already in an auto layout. So let's have a think. So here, actually that's not in an auto layout. So if I do Shift A, that is now, no, because my face is in the way. Shift A, and on the left and the right it's 20. And this one here, if I hit enter to go in, I actually want that to be fill container. So now it's right to the edge and it's 2020 on the right. So now you can see it is nice and fluid. Now, one thing I noticed is the banner, because we're using an image which is position absolute, you can see here why this is happening, and you can just do this on a you can actually fill it with an image this way, right? But we're learning the other way. So all we have to do here, we just have to make sure that it is going to be constrained to the left and the right. So I hold shift down, click there. However, we just have to bring that image all the way to the edge. So now if we were to do this, you can see it is nice and fluid. So please leave a like, leave a comment. How did you find this tutorial? So in the next video we might be looking at doing the hero section of the space, which we're going to then use some UI and forms. Subscribe and join me on the journey from designing and developing from Figma to Webflow.